Welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. This is Andrew Kraft. Well, the NFL is under pressure yet again over these concussion concerns. The concussion debate is alive and well in the NFL after Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa sustained neck and head injuries after being slammed to the ground last night in a game against the Cincinnati Bengals and was stretchered from the field. We have a tweet from the Miami Dolphins organization. They tweeted this last night saying that QB Tua Tagovailoa is expected to be discharged from the University of Cincinnati Medical Center and will fly home with the team tonight. Joining me now to discuss this and what this means for, liability concerns from the NFL, coaches, owners, and the like is sports legal expert and analyst Dan Lust. Dan, good to see you. We bring you on for so many of these stories. Let's talk about this one because it got a lot of attention on Twitter just last night because the Miami Dolphins quarterback, Tua, he goes by, he had suffered something like this just a week ago, if I'm correct.
Week ago, but for being technical, it was 4 days prior. So that's a little bit of the problem, having a Sunday game and then asking players to kind of get healed up in like 3 days and play again on a Thursday. So, this wasn't, we'll say, the first instance within the last 7 days where the general population felt that Tua suffered a concussion. So, I guess that's where we have to start the story.
Okay, because this is getting so much attention online, I want to put up this tweet yet again, too. This is from Dr. Chris Nowinski, who's been very, very involved in these discussions amongst the NFL when it comes to concussions. He says if Tua takes the field tonight, it's a massive step back for concussion care in the NFL. This tweet was written about 6 hours before the game took place, Dan. And then he went on to say if he has a second concussion that destroys his season or career, everyone involved will be sued and should lose their jobs, coaches included. We all saw it. Even they must know this isn't right. And so he kind of predicted what this would happen, weirdly, and it did happen last night in the game. So what do you make of this? Are we hearing from officials? Are we hearing from coaches? Are they worried about their liability in this?
So a little background on Chris Nowinski. He's a former Harvard-educated guy, but a former professional wrestler. So you're trying to figure out what the connection is. Obviously, any type of sport that has a lot of contact and physical, interactions with one another, you have the risk of concussion. So Nowinski, had suffered concussions earlier in his career and now turned his kind of plight to drawing attention to athlete concussion. So put it this way, I don't think it's the first time that he's gone on a platform and said something like this, but it might be the first time that he's predicted it and then it happened, which made it so much worse. So Andrew, on Sunday, there was a scene out in Miami. I'm big Buffalo Bills fans. The Bills were playing the Dolphins, and a very close game. The Bills, at least going into that game, were considered the top team in football. Tua suffered what we thought as a viewing audience to be a concussion. He stood up, immediately collapsed. This is on Sunday. This is not the images we're seeing now. Stood up, collapsed, stood up again and collapsed, and had to be walked off the field. Under the NFL's concussion protocol, if a player exhibits signs of a concussion, which sometimes you just know it when you see it, when you can't stand up, when you're showing signs of instability, you have to then be cleared by not just the Dolphins medical staff, the team he works for, he's employed by, but also an independent doctor. So it didn't surprise anyone that he was being evaluated for a concussion. Andrew, it did surprise me as an attorney that follows the space and as just a general sports fan, that they didn't call to his injury on Sunday a head injury. They called it a back injury. And because they called it a back injury, he technically wasn't in the NFL's concussion protocol and was allowed to return to that game, the game that the Dolphins ended up winning. But Andrew, proverbially, right? They won the game, but at what cost? Because Tua had to go in, had to have some more physical contact, some more tackles and sacks that could result in some head trauma. And now, in theory, right, we might have a second concussion in a 5-day period, which if anyone does the history or looks up any of Nowinski's research or anyone else's research, concussions in that short a period of time are much worse than just 2 concussions generally sustained.
Yeah, Dan, I mean, it was plain as day. You could see it. His hands were kind of frozen and snarling on the ground, and then he was put on the stretcher and carted off the field. So you really know it when you see it. It will be interesting to see, and that's where these questions are arising. Why is the league not sticking by its policy? It seems, at least on the surface, that they are somewhat trying to get around the policy they have in place. I want to put up this tweet here from the Players Union, the NFLPA. They say player health and safety is at the core of the union's mission. Our concern tonight is for Tua, and we hope for a full and speedy recovery. Our investigation into the potential protocol violation is ongoing. So this isn't going to be the last that we hear of this, and we do hope Tua does recover and is well yet again. He's young, but do you think this will be kind of a career make or break for him? Do you think he's that injured?
I mean, it's tough to tell, right? With concussions, you don't really know what the full extent of a concussion is in terms of your long-term effects until many, many years later. So I guess that's kind of step one. But, for step two, right, it's a mental injury, right? Maybe it's a neurological injury. So you're not going to necessarily see it. It's not the same way like a broken ankle or a broken arm where we kind of have some type of understanding of the time frame and how quickly the bone heals. But the way the human brain is studied, right? You can't study it while someone is still alive. So yeah, you can't really tell at this phase what the impact it's going to have on his career. The Dolphins will tell you, right, that he's only sustained one concussion, which is very different than I think anyone is saying on social media. But yeah, if you just watched the scene last night, on Thursday night, it was a very scary scene with hands kind of atrophying, and it was very scary. So Tua is a guy, a top pick, a former top college player at the University of Alabama. I think the number 5 overall pick to the Dolphins once upon a time. So it's not just any player. It's a player that's very highly thought of, that the Dolphins have invested a lot in. So, Andrew, this is why you have backup quarterbacks. If a player is showing signs of instability, is hurt, is not at 100%, you could bring in the backup. But, again, that's the narrative right now. If you're watching on social media, if you're talking in these legal circles, the Dolphins allowed him to return to a game that he probably had no part in playing in, and then let him play on Thursday night when, in theory, he might have just either suffered a very serious back injury or neck injury or something else. But yeah, to be playing that quickly, less than 7 days after, I don't think that's something that would normally be recommended by a doctor.
Yeah, but Dan, the policy and the protocol is in place. Why is the NFL apparently not following it? Why aren't they putting their money where their mouth is? The league is getting a lot of pushback from this, and the Miami Dolphins organization too.
Yeah, I mean, what has gone on here is I think, the Dolphins were claiming that it was a back injury, and I think Tua, right, the player himself, is probably someone that wanted to go out and play as well. But the NFL protocol is, or at least should be, designed to remove those questions, remove those decisions from the player, from the team's hand. You put a lot of weight on that independent doctor to make the right call. So yes, you can, in some sense blame the NFL, but this system, the NFL concussion protocol, was collectively bargained for as in between the Players Association and the owners. So, players can be upset about it, the fans can be upset about it, but it just seems like an issue that either the protocol was not followed by the Dolphins and the player, or the protocol is not sufficient. So all I can tell you, right, if you look at the NFL's concussion protocol, one of the things they have to evaluate is the way a player is able to walk. They're an observation of the player's gait, the player's instability. And if a player on Sunday is falling down and cannot stand up from a very traumatic hit, I'm not sure he should be returning to the game. And then the second question is, I'm not sure he should be playing a game 4 days later. So those are elements that the NFL is going to have to evaluate. I know Dr. Alan Sills, the NFL's chief medical officer, issued a statement that they're going to be fully transparent and issue a full and comprehensive report. But we'll get to the bottom of this. The NFLPA, the Players Association, is investigating whether the Dolphins did something wrong. So we'll see if there is, some culpability here. We're going to find out in the next couple of days.
Yeah. Dan, I want to talk about some some good sports news. That, of course, is what we saw a couple of days ago with Aaron Judge, the New York Yankees player who finally tied Roger Maris's milestone of 61 home runs. I'm not sure if you're a Yankees or a Mets fan because you're based on the Northeast, but do you think he's going to surpass the record? And if so, when do you think we should see that?
I'm a sports fan, so I think everyone is rooting for Judge to break 61, unless maybe you're a Roger Maris fan or something like that. But, waning moments of the season, we have 5-6 games, depending on the team you're rooting for. Aaron Judge is on really the precipice of history here. It took him, I think, 8 games, or at least 8 days to get from 60 to 61. So if he goes on that same pace between 61 and 62, problematic. So, 61 is that magic number from, Roger Maris, and Babe Ruth once upon a time at 60. People are following this. Obviously, Barry Bonds is technically the single-season home run record holder at 73. Mark McGwire had 70. Sammy Sosa had 66. But that era of baseball, where the record was broken, is known as the steroid era. Whether or not those 3 individuals use steroids is kind of up for debate. But a guy like Aaron Judge, first guy in 61 years to be able to eclipse 61, that has some significance. So, Andrew, if you're following it, that lucky ball, if it is hit, the 60-second home run ball is estimated at a whopping like $1.5 million. So, if there's any wonder why those seats have been so expensive in Yankee Stadium for the next 3 days, that's part of the reason why.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about, whoever catches that ball, whoever caught the 61st ball, there's this pressure to kind of, give it back. You want to kind of virtue signal and say, like, you want this to be a part of history. But then there's the personal self-interest in store is, wow, you could really make a lot of money selling that ball somewhere if you caught it in the stands.
Yeah, I'm certainly one as my legal background, right? Like if someone catches a $1 million ball, there will certainly be the virtue signalers on social media and the people in the crowd that will yell and say, give it to Judge, right? The truth is, at least I can tell you from the legal side, right? The fan that catches that ball, he owns that ball. He or she owns that ball. You catch a foul ball at the stadium the same way. That ball is no longer the ownership of Major League Baseball or the teams or the batter or the pitcher or anything like that. So, my legal advice, if any of your lucky listeners catches that ball, right? My advice is to sleep on it, right? There is no deadline by which you have to give this ball back. And especially with a guy like Judge, if he hits it 62, maybe you want to turn around and sell that ball really quickly because you'll be afraid he'll hit 63. But my advice would probably be to sit on that. Ball's going to have some historic value. And I doubt you're going to get full value if you sell it in the next 48 hours. I think your best bet's to hold on to that piece of history and then decide if you want to sell it.
All right. Good advice there. Dan Lust, as always. We appreciate it. Have a good weekend, Dan. We'll talk again.
My pleasure.